Hello, third graders. We're going to continue our Read Aloud Tales from the Odyssey. We're on chapter 2 of the section, The Princess. Athena traveled swiftly over the earth to the land of King Elasionos. King Elasionos was a wise and generous leader, and his kingdom was blessed. The men were the best sailors in all the world, and the women were the best weavers. Athena passed green fields, splendid temples, and lovely houses until finally she came to the palace of the king and queen. In the hour before dawn, she slipped through the entranceway, then down to the hall to the chamber of the king's daughter, Nausicaa. The goddess glided silently into the princess's room. Like a breath of wind, she swept past two young handmaidens sleeping near the door. Athena hovered for a moment over the princess's bed. Then she quickly changed her shape to that of Nausica's closest friend. She spoke to the princess as if in a dream. "Nausicaa, you are so lazy," she said. "Don't you know that there are many dirty clothes in the palace that must be washed? How will you ever marry if you do not have a clean gown? At dawn, you must load the best linen into a wagon and go to the pools near the shore and do the washing." The gray-eyed goddess then slipped out of the palace as swiftly and silently as she had come. When dawn broke, Nausicaa woke and remembered her strange dream. She hurried at once to her parents' chamber. "Father, I must go today and wash all our best clothes in the sea," she said. "If I do not have clean clothes, how will I ever marry?" King Elasionos smiled. He thought his daughter's words were strange, but he could refuse her nothing. "If that is what you wish, Nausicaa, that is what you shall do," he said. "I will tell the servants to fetch a wagon and harness the mules so that you can carry all our clothes down to the sea." The king's servants quickly prepared a wagon. The princess and her handmaidens loaded piles of soiled cloaks, robes, tunics, and gowns into the back. They packed a lunch of bread and meat, a goatskin filled with wine, and a flask of golden olive oil. Nausicaa climbed into the driver's seat of the wagon and snapped the reins. The team of mules lunged forward, and the wagon rattled noisily over the road, carrying the princess and her handmaidens toward the sea. When they came to the washing pools near the shore, the girls unhitched the mules. They unloaded the wagon and carried the piles of clothes down to the pools. They stamped on the garments, washing them in seawater until they were spotless. Then they spread them over the rocks to dry. As they waited for the sun and wind to dry their laundry, the princess and her handmaidens bathed in the sea. They ate their bread and meat. Then they threw off their veils and began playing ball. The princess tossed the ball high into the air. A maiden missed the catch, and the ball rolled into the water. As the girls ran to get it, they laughed and shouted. Not far away, a sad and weary man lay beneath a blanket of leaves under an olive tree. When he heard the voices of the young girls, he opened his eyes. "Where am I?" he wondered. "Who is shouting and laughing?" Their voices sound like those of nymphs who haunt rivers and mountains. Odysseus broke off a bough of thick leaves to hide his nakedness. Then he crept out from under the olive tree into the afternoon sea. Chapter 3, The Stranger. When the handmaidens saw Odysseus, they screamed and ran away. But Princess Nausicaa stood very still, for Athena had filled her heart with courage. The young girl stared at the unkempt stranger, covered with sea salt and dirt and leaves. "Beautiful princess, are you a goddess or a mortal?" Odysseus said. "Whoever you are, have pity on me, for I have suffered much. I was tossed upon the seas for 20 days until the waves flung me onto the shore. Can you give me clothes to hide my nakedness? Can you tell me the way to your town?" The princess drew close to Odysseus. "Stranger, I believe you are a good man," she said. "I am Nausicaa, the daughter of King Elasionos. My maids and I will help you." Nausicaa called for her handmaidens to come out of their hiding places. She ordered them to bring clean clothes and olive oil for the mysterious stranger. Odysseus washed himself in a stream, then rubbed the olive oil over his battered, sun-dried skin. When he had dressed himself in a tunic and cloak, the princess's handmaidens brought him meat and wine. After Odysseus finished his meal, Princess Nausicaa told him what he must do. "You may follow our wagon to the walls of the town," she said, "but when we get inside the walls, you must leave us. The men of my land are the finest sailors in the world, but they are suspicious of strangers. They may think you are a vagabond from some foreign ship and speak ill of me for leading you to our city." "Where should I go?" asked Odysseus. Inside the walls of the city there's a grove of poplars sacred to Athena. Wait there until I've had time to get home, said Nausicaa. Then come to the palace. Inside you will find my parents sitting before a fire. My mother will be spinning dark blue wool. Kneel before her and ask her for help. The princess then shook the reins of her wagon, and the mules began clattering toward town. Odysseus followed the wagon past fields and farmland and a harbor filled with fine ships. When the wagon arrived at the narrow gates of the city, Odysseus followed it through the gates, then stopped and watched it rattle on without him. Odysseus walked quickly through a marketplace filled with merchants selling fish, sails, and ships' oars. As he made his way between the stalls, several of the merchants and customers eyed him suspiciously. Odysseus quickly slipped past them and into the sacred grove of poplar trees. He hid among the trees, waiting for the princess to reach the palace. While he waited, Odysseus prayed to the gods. "Hear me, O gods of Olympus. Have pity upon me," he begged. "Grant that I may make my way safely to the palace and find favor with the king and queen." Odysseus remained hidden in the olive grove until he was sure Princess Nausicaa had had enough time to reach the palace. Then he stepped cautiously out into the streets again. As Odysseus started out of the grove, a strange mist covered his body. No one seemed to notice him as he made his way through the streets. "Has Athena made me invisible?" he wondered. Suddenly, a small girl stepped in front of Odysseus. The child stared up at him with bright gray eyes. Odysseus wondered if the girl might be Athena in disguise. "Can you tell me the way to the palace of the king?" he asked her. "I will show you," said the child. "Follow me and speak to no one." Odysseus followed the girl through the streets. When they drew near the palace, she said simply, "Go inside and look for the queen." Then she disappeared, leaving Odysseus alone at the palace gates. Odysseus entered the gates and passed through an orchard of trees laden with luscious figs, pears, and apples. He walked through a rich vineyard and a bountiful flower garden. When he entered the halls of the palace, he gasped in wonder. The palace shone with a splendor like that of the sun and moon. Golden statues of boys holding fiery torches lit the halls. In the gleaming light, handmaidens worked at their looms. Their fingers fluttered like aspen leaves in the wind as they wove their beautiful linen. No one seemed to notice Odysseus as he walked through the palace. Hidden by Athena's cloak of mist, he slipped silently into the great hall. As Odysseus looked about for the queen, he saw a group of nobles sitting near an open fire. Nearby sat the king and a woman spinning wool. Odysseus moved quickly toward Nausicaa's mother. As he knelt in the ashes before the hearth, he felt the mist around him evaporate, and suddenly he was visible again. Some in the hall cried out in alarm when they saw the strange, haggard man. But Odysseus spoke quickly and passionately to the queen. "I humbly beg you to have pity on me," he said. "I have come here from beyond the sea. Help me find my way back to my home country, to my wife and my son."